Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing fabulous today. If you're not, hopefully the spaces today will cheer you up. Good morning, Derek. Oh, if you're new to Pulse Chain or the Grays, and you want to know what they're all about, I'm holding an AMA tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. So if you're new, if you found this on YouTube and you want to know what it's all about, we'll talk about it on my channel. Join the space, accept and speak. Good morning.
Good morning, Belinda.
How goes the battle?
It's going. Interesting week.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like every week is interesting around here.
Yeah, that's one thing I thought for sure is I thought this year was going to feel like a movie, and it for sure has felt like a movie so far.
Yeah. I dropped the YouTube in a couple different chats today. A couple chats that I'm in, including the Polish chat, the pTGC Polish chat, and the Chinese chat, just to try to stir up some activity in those chats. Well, the Polish chat actually doesn't need any more activity. They've got it going on over there. Very, very active chat, that one is.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is a lot of people in it, or is it a few people that are just really talkative?
I think, and let's see, I think there are maybe, I don't remember. Let me look. I will find out. Give me a second. More than a second. There we go. 600.
That's quite a bit.
I'd say.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about our chat, ever since we got listed pretty high on CoinGecko, we've been getting a lot of bots, and I think it's due to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Not saying that's our count, because usually they get deleted, but there's a huge inflow of accounts coming into our chat constantly.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of them, I think, are just bots.
Yeah.
And I think it's from the CoinGecko listing.
Yes. Good afternoon, David. A crispy man's in the chat too. And
Nice.
Expensive Taste. Hi, Expensive Taste. It's good to see you.
Are you still working on that time with Expensive Taste? You mentioned that you're going to try to get on a interview with her maybe in the future.
Yes. Yep. Just sent out a calendar invite. Yeah, we decided to see. We decided to set up a Calendly. I did, and she says I'm working on it. I promise. I know she is. Very kind of you. I set up a Calendly to make it easy for people to schedule. People in other industries use Calendly, and it makes it. I don't know if you've gotten like invites to whatever a meeting, and you can like pick the time. It's like, oh yeah, man, I love that. And setting up streams has been a little challenging because you're like, what time works for you? What time works for me? You got to get it from them, line it up with you. And if it works, it works. It's just like, well, I think we can smooth this process. So we got Calendly set it up. The idea is, Zen, from my perspective, I want to make it easy for people, right? Because we want to have more interviews. If we make it easy, then obviously I think we can have more interviews. And that's my goal.
Yeah, definitely. On the topic, since you said Crispy Man was in here, Crispy Man might be a great person to invite on.
Crispy, you're on my list. Yes, he's a data head. I'd love to have him on, man. Crypto Stylist said good morning, and I think she said it from about 30,000 feet, unless I'm mistaken. Stylist. Perhaps. A Bitcoin is $84,000. It's 2 days, 2 green candle days. I'm liking that.
How's Eve doing?
Sorry. Crypto Stylist says Crispy is on the A list. He's on my A friend list, I can tell you what. I like Crispy, man. How's ETH doing? $19.29. $1,929. It's still under 2,000, which is where it was on Spaces 2 weeks ago, like 13 days ago. And the Grays currencies are just going to be a reflection of those 2 tokens in particular, you know?
Yeah, the whole market is in general, right? As the dogs move down, everything usually moves down with it. Everything that has sustainability, right? Anything that's kind of one with the market moves down and up with those assets. Yeah, of course, there's like the new tokens that launch every day that move against them just because of the day hype, and then there's the new tokens that also crash at the times of the market moving up and down due to them not being sustainable and just a short-lived protocol or token, because there's so many tokens launching every single day. But if you kind of take off all that noise and you look at like more of the sustainable long-term systems, they tend to just move up and down with the market, just with sometimes a little bit of amplified upwards direction or a little bit of amplified downward pressure, but overall pretty consistent with each other.
Right.
On the topic, real quick, of Crispy Man, I don't know if you've seen any glimpses of Crispy Man's like website that he's made, where he shows all of the movements and all of the liquidity pools on chain and how much value is moving through them and stuff. Have you seen any glimpses of that?
I heard about it at the conference. I think I saw it on the mastermind that we're in, but I was trying to find it and I couldn't. So Crispy Man, or maybe I'd like to see it. If one of you guys can tell me how to find it, I'd love to see it.
I think it's behind his group's wall. I think you have to be part of his group, but I've seen videos of him showing it, and it's sweet.
Okay.
It's really, really sweet.
Oh man. You know, I wanted to look at the Grays currencies, of course, in there and see how I just wanted to see it. I wanted to see pTGC and UFO in there, but maybe somebody can screenshot it.
Yeah, I was saying by the time he comes up, maybe that's if he does go on your channel, that would be a fun thing to look at on your channel.
There we go.
It's like a good topic, and it's super cool. It's like really cool.
All right, I'm gonna make a note to ask him about that. Did you see the tweet that I posted earlier this week? About 3 days ago, about the about the stats about where pTGC was, about how many tokens were available the last time we were at this price levels. I think I PM'd it over to you.
You did, but let's go over it.
Okay, I'll read it. I'm sharing it on my screen. The last time pTGC was at 4038, there were 7.7 billion tokens available in the. I think on the DApp, it's showing the top 4 pools. Is that correct?
It could be a little bit more than that, but I do know it's not all the pools.
Okay. So there were 7.7 billion tokens available in those pools, and you can see this at pulsetgc.com and go to the stats page and just hover over the red wedge, and you'll see how many tokens are available. Now pTGC is at this level again, the price level, and there are 5.3 billion tokens in that same collection of pools. So I says, I think I know what might happen the next time it runs up to previous all-time high, where we last time we had 4.3 billion tokens. And I have that on record because I record it, not every day, but I record it about once a week. ChatGPT says, I just had ChatGPT do the math, and it says we'll have about 3 billion tokens, which is a 31% reduction in available tokens once we run up to the previous all-time high. I'd like to hear you explain why there's that 31% reduction.
So your price can be kind of made up of two factors. It's a little bit dependent on the things you're connected to, along with how you're performing against the things you're connected to, right? So we technically could be up 10x from here, and our whole distribution, this whole pie chart, could actually not even change. And that would be done just solely by our connected assets going up 10x, right? Because everything's ratio based. But also we could go down and this could not even change due to our connected assets going down. The reason it changes is by our specific token changing. So when we perform against in the upwards or against in the downwards direction of our connected assets, then this distribution will change. More tokens could get put into liquidity, more tokens could be pulled out of liquidity, but that also would be changing the price as well. So we kind of have like a constant change going on within our own system, while the whole entire ecosystem that we're connected to is ever changing as well. So ultimately what that tells me is we are at the same price, but there's less tokens on the market for availability, usually due to us outperforming the market. So the market is most likely lower than it was the last time we're at these prices.
Okay. Do you think that would put us closer to a supply squeeze?
It's definitely closer to a supply squeeze. The less tokens that are available on the market is less tokens for people to hold or buy. But currently the market, like even all the way back to ETH and Bitcoin, like we were talking about earlier, but more importantly, the pulse chain market is giving people a discount on a very, very scarce supply, right? So think of it like this. If pulse chain was at SAC rate right now, and our ratios were technically the same, it would actually probably be more of this due to reflexivity, but just for simplicity purposes, let's say everything that we're connected to was 3 times higher than it is today, roughly SAC price. Obviously, PLSX wouldn't be at SAC price, but let's just say everything's up 3x. Well, then in turn, pTGC and UFO would be up 3x, which would mean that the assets that are available would be roughly the same. There would still be the same scarce supply, no more, no less, but you would have to pay 3 times the amount of money to access that scarce supply. As of right now, pulse chain is at 0.00032 or something like that. So how I look at it is there's still that very, very scarce supply, but the market, pulse chain in general, is actually giving an extreme discount on whatever tokens are still left, which actually makes it easier to get those tokens out of the liquidity pools if you have value entering the system, right? So if we were up 3x and we had, let's say, $1 million enter into the system, well, we would actually receive 3 times less quantity of tokens out of the liquidity pools. But since we're at these lower levels, if we have $1 million enter the system, we're not only going to appreciate the price higher because we have lack of liquidity, but we're also going to be able to pull more tokens out of the liquidity pools, technically 3 times the amount, because the price is 3 times cheaper. There's a sale going on. Just like if you're at the grocery store and there's 70% off, or, you know, on a certain item you're interested in, you only had $10. Well, you would be able to get 3 times that amount of item if there was that huge sale. Same thing happens in crypto. If there's a huge sale going on, the markets are down, you're actually able to get 3 times the amount of pTGC currently right now for that same dollar value. If in comparatively, you compare it to a time when Pulse Chain was at SAC rate and we are still holding this same ratio based between our distribution.
Okay. That was a very detailed answer. Thank you for that.
If you have the pressure right now, it's kind of, you know, and this is just an honest answer, it's a little bit harder to find pressure, like buy pressure on a blockchain where the whole blockchain is kind of down and worn out, I think is a good word. You know, I think a lot of people on Pulse Chain are a little bit worn out due to where we are in the market and where the prices are, to where they're not as willing to keep buying or keep DCAing or, you know, moving value around. So that is a hurdle that comes to play, right? Is people are kind of just like, you know, I don't want to make any more moves. I don't want to bridge in any more money. Like, this is just the sad truth and reality. But the thing is if you are able to get traction at these levels, or if we're able to keep pushing forward, keep onboarding, keep, you know, getting fresh capital onto this chain that has crazy amounts of upside potential. Like, the truth is when prices are this low, it's actually the least risky for the max reward. So for onboarding, for educating, people are actually getting like the best prices that have been here in 5 years. Like, think about it. Like, people, not 5 years, maybe for Pulse Chain, but for Hex, but for Pulse Chain, 3 years, or, you know, or 2 years, right? We're running on 2 years. But people sacked like, what, 4 years ago?
Yes, 4 years ago this summer.
Okay, 4 years ago this summer. People are getting better deals today, times 3.
3 plus.
Yeah, 3 plus. Than they got 4 years ago. Like,
yep.
And then we're running into what could be a great alt season and a great move for Pulse Chain. So they're not only having to wait very minimal amount of time, they're also getting the item at a complete discount.
Yes.
I think that's a great opportunity. This is like the time personally that you should really like be onboarding to products like Pulse Chain, Pulse X, and pTGC and UFO are discounted in these ways due to their connectiveness to Pulse Chain as well. So this is actually the best time to be getting people in, and it's the best time to get people in, but it's also the hardest, right? And that's just the truth. It's also the hardest. But with value entering into our system at these low levels, we're actually becoming scarcer quicker with the same amount of dollar value, and we're able to do X's easier against the blockchain due to all of our connected assets being down, which decreases our liquidity pool size, which makes it with $1 million entered in, you're actually going to do more X's than if liquidity was a little bit larger due to our connected assets being a little bit larger. So there's a lot of pros of being down at these levels. We're buying and burning per dollar value at a way higher rate. We are adding LP per dollar value at a way higher rate. We're paying APY in quantity of tokens per dollar value at a way higher rate. So these dips are a great foundation building point for the pTGC and UFO ecosystem. And this is actually the point where we've made the most amount of ground coverage against the blockchain, is when everything is at the lower levels and we tend to outperform, is where we cover a lot of ground, to where when the blockchain starts to perform with us, we're that much more ahead, right? And we're moving that much quicker and we have that much more momentum. We, in the past, have used these dips to our benefit, making our asset more scarce, continuously redistributing supply to stronger hands as market makers buy and sell, as humans buy and sell, as we add LP via the code or via the DAO. It's just creating a stronger foundation. So when it is time for us or for the market to move back up, we can actually make a taller building. We can actually go higher due to us spending so much time focusing on the foundation of this build.
Right. Zen, there are some new people in the chat. I think there's some people in the chat that are looking to learn about the Grays ecosystem. One in particular, Maximilian asks, what should a newbie to Pulse Chain know about pTGC and the rest of the ecosystem? And I think we should just spend a few minutes talking about like the fundamentals of both pTGC and UFO. And I'll just go ahead and start. pTGC it's a fee-based token. The fee is 5%. Its emphasis is on single-sided staking. When you buy it, you can hold it to earn reflections. You can stake it to earn staking rewards, and you can lock it to earn locking rewards. You don't have to lock it. You don't have to stake it. You can just hold this token, and you'll earn reflections. It is like it's like an index of the best tokens on the Pulse network, because I'm going to remove the post here for a second. Hold on. It is bonded with the best assets on the Pulse network: Hex, Pulse, PulseX, Inc., Teddy Bear. And as those assets move up, it's going to, and has historically, pulled up pTGC. But what we've seen is that pTGC is actually outperforming those assets. So like, for example, at the end of August last year, if you had bought pTGC instead of Pulse, for example, Pulse is the layer 1. If you had bought pTGC, you would be 20, right now, actually 10x. You'd have 10 times more Pulse because you bought pTGC, because pTGC has done a 10x against the Pulse chain, because everything in crypto is ratio based. So you'd be up on your Pulse. And then UFO is more of an LP platform. Again, it's a fee-based token, 6%. You can buy UFO, hold it, earn reflections, and you can take a portion if you wanted to and pair it with RH tickers, the 6 RH tickers on the DApp. The DApp is pulsetgc.com. And then if you pair it with an RH ticker, you will be earning Pulse as a reward. What do you want to add, Zan?
I think that pretty much covered it. I would just put a little bit of an emphasis on that both pTGC and UFO, per their design, are indexes of most of the best tokens on chain. Mm-hmm. So you can just hold both pTGC and UFO. You don't even need to stake it. You don't even need to LP it. You can literally just hold these tokens. And when you hold these tokens, you are actually holding all of the blue chips of Pulse Chain. So as these connected assets grow, you reap the rewards. Even if they decrease, sadly, these assets do get dragged down, but that's how these systems work, just like being connected to any assets. But the thing is by just holding these tokens, you are connected to some of the best tokens on chain with the maximum performance. But the catch is you have the ability to do more X's over those assets. Due to us being a smaller cup and due to our mechanics built into our code, we are hyper deflationary, and you earn APY just for holding. So you're not only getting to realize the gains of the assets that you're connected to, but you're also able to multiply. And the key word is multiply, not add. Multiply those gains by the gains that this system can do on its own. For an example, like Banana said, we've done a 10x against Pulse Chain since August. So we did a 10x against Pulse Chain. Well, let's say if Pulse Chain did a 10x in the next few months. Well, actually, as being a pTGC holder, if we keep that ratio that we're at now, that would be 100x for you if you're a pTGC holder. And that's what's such a unique opportunity that we have here on PulseChain, with PulseChain being so young, is we're able to do plenty of X's on our own, and the blockchain still has plenty of X's to do, which makes it the ability to multiply the two together, possibly doing a 100X. The thing that makes pTGC and UFO separate is pTGC is built with a ton of locked and burnt liquidity and protocol owned liquidity, and you can earn additional APY for staking. And it's single-sided staking where you keep self-custody. Where UFO really stands apart is UFO is a one-of-its-kind design. I've never seen anything designed like this. It has a whole entire farm built around giving the UFO token value. So the community is actually stepping up and providing LP, which when you provide LP with a token, you're actually giving that token value by providing that LP. But a lot of times with farms, they're not actually designed around giving a token value. They're designed around giving a network value or a DEX value. And then they pay out in an inflationary token to reward users for doing so. This specific farm was actually designed around giving a specific token value and giving the holders of this specific token rewards and deflationary assets, along with supporting pTGC. As of the launch of UFO, the honest truth is the tokens that are within this farm have been performing quite poorly, right? They technically are down, I think, over 50% from when UFO launched. But UFO still has performed so well due to how strong this mechanic actually is. And I do believe once the connected assets of UFO, along with UFO specific tokenomics, come in line with each other, once the blockchain starts doing decent, UFO is going to catch a lot of people off guard. Because there's yet to be an actual token that has a whole entire farm system built around giving that specific token value and making it hyper deflationary and paying people just for holding that token and participating in that farm. It's never been done. It's an experiment in a way, right? These ideas about pTGC and UFO are ideas that haven't been really ever done in crypto before. But as of right now, they've been thriving in an environment that's actually not favorable to their design. And we've done this amount of exits. So what you have to kind of step back and ask yourself, what happens when the environment that we're in actually turns favorable to these systems designs? Once PulseChain does a 10x, well, we know liquidity-wise what happens if PulseChain does a 10x. Our liquidity web would be sitting at roughly $200 million. So we would start by having one of the largest liquidity systems in all of crypto, not just PulseChain, but in particular, that liquidity system actually generates revenue for our tokens, where most tokens don't even have a value generation system, or their value generation system is not really needed. Well, our value generation system is reliant on the only guarantee within markets moving up and down. So with a lot of utilities out there, you need a user to actually use the utility for it to bring in revenue. Our system actually operates with no users needed. All the market needs to do is move up and down. We generate revenue off of it and then make our tokens more scarce, more valuable, and pay APY for doing so. That's pretty much it. I won't go any more in depth. That's probably too much, but
no, that was good. I wanted to add a couple of things. So if you're new and you're curious about the Grays currencies, I will be doing an AMA tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. It's like pretty much a full presentation. I'll go through the DApp, how to stake, how to LP, all that stuff, how they work, and you can ask all your questions. Same channel tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific. And then one thing that you can do if you're new to ratios and you're curious about pTGC is pull up the chart in the pTGC WPLS chart. I'm showing it on my screen. What you want to do is click on WPLS, and that'll show you the ratio. And you can see it over here. It says 10.75. That's the ratio. We have been as high as 22, and that means 22 pulse per pTGC. I think we're going back to that previous all-time high. It's just a matter of time. So to me, it looks like it's a very simple 2x from here. But then what you can do is you can actually take and drag your chart. And I found this very interesting to do. And you can drag it to the right, and you can see how this token has gone up and to the right against Pulse for pretty much its entire existence. And Pulse right now is below, it's 35% of SAC price. And we can only imagine what's going to happen when it goes up to the SAC price, which is 301. The Grays currencies are probably going to do, probably based on history, they're probably going to do more X's. And then we hope that Pulse Chain does more than just SAC price in this bull run.
Yeah, while we're on the topic, Banana, it's an important topic to discuss. And this isn't a guarantee, but we actually have seen pTGC and Pulse Chain hit these levels in the past. Like we've seen Pulse Chain tap these all-time lows 2 times before. And what that actually has equaled for pTGC and UFO is extreme opportunity. Does a lot of people take advantage of this opportunity? Not too many, right? Because if you get fearful, everything's low, you don't want to be moving stuff around at the low. But what I do want to bring up is people who have acted on, maybe DCAing or grabbing their first position or re-entering their position on pTGC and UFO at these low levels of Pulse Chain and UFO. When Pulse Chain has moved back up, in all 3 of these instances, we've done between a 40 and a 50x off of these lows. So yeah, I think it kind of hurts at times, seeing the network we're on at low levels. But what it actually does equal is extreme opportunity for assets that perform well when markets pick up. And that's kind of the most important thing is like everything does tend to retrace at times, especially when the market consolidates. But what you have to ask yourself is what assets perform the best when markets start to pick up. And this system has been specifically designed to perform very, very well when markets pick up because liquidity picks up, volume picks up, the tokens we're connected to picks up, which increases our value. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not, right? We can't guarantee people could sell, but we have seen this in the past 3 times, and each time it's acted in the same way. Our system ramps up, it turns on, and all 3 of these times we've done a 40 to a 50x.
We had a comment about, or actually a question. Docile asks, has the burned LP adding been paused? Because it seems to be no longer than a month. It seems to be longer than a month since the last time it happened. And it has basically been paused because we have been burning tokens instead. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think he's referring to the DAO because when we were in an uptrend of the market, we were constantly doing buy-in burns. We were doing LP ads and burns with the DAO funds, but we've currently put a little bit of a pause on both of those things due to the fact that the market has been trending downwards for roughly a month now. And it ultimately would have been, I think it was a really good idea because if we were injecting all those funds in this downtrend of the market, it would have been in a way washed away and unrealized. Like, yeah, they would have went into the chart and it would have helped temporarily, but the big impact of it would have been washed away with the downtrend of the market. So we've actually been accumulating those funds in the management wallet for the DAO, and we have all those funds still sitting on the sideline. And the plan is once the market finds a bottom, for us to then re-enter that value in as either buy-in burns or LP ads at that moment, at the bottom of the market. And as of right now, the plan has worked perfectly, right? We're just kind of waiting for that confirmation on the bottom. Right now, just for number purposes, we have roughly 5 billion Pulse sitting in the DAO smart contract, which is roughly $160,000. And then in the management wallet, we have, one second.
Interesting, because Shaka Vibes asked that very question just a minute ago.
So in the management wallet, we have 4.4 billion. So we have just over 9 billion pulse, which is probably roughly around $300,000 at the lows within the smart contract of the DAO and the DAO management wallet. And ultimately, that value is eventually all going to be out and accessible. Right now, it's only half of it's accessible. But that's going to be put into the pTGC and UFO ecosystem somewhat at the bottom. And what that equals is what we were talking about earlier, more buy and burns at cheaper prices. It's going to help set a floor for not only our system, but right at the bottom of the entire market. And we're going to use it to help the pTGC system in the future. Just while we're on the topic, so right now, Pulse Chain's really low, but you know, if we have 300,000 and let's say Pulse Chain goes up 3x, well, that's $900,000. And that would be a nice little injection into the system. But
yes.
Yeah, so on that point, yes, it has been paused just due to the market being in pretty much a free fall, not just Pulse Chain market, but the whole entire crypto market in general. And there is only so much ammo that we could use on a daily basis due to how fast the revenue is coming in. And we figured it'd be a better opportunity for us to wait on this ammo and inject it in at the right time instead of just injecting it all as just randomly and not properly planned out. Or I'm trying to think of a better example that's fair. It's kind of like you have a fire and you want to keep that fire burning and it's raining really, really hard. Well, sometimes it's good to take a couple pieces of that timber to some shelter and let them be safe in the shelter, wait for the weather to clear, wait for the rain to stop, and then go back to the place where you had that thriving fire, your source of life, burning, and then rebuild that fire back up when the environment is right for the injection, right?
Good one, Zen. I love that illustration. Well done. So I was doing some quick estimations while you were talking. So that's basically $310,000 worth of PLS. And this highlights the power of the DAO, the pTGC DAO, and what it has the ability to do, being like a ship on the sea, not a train on a track. So a ship on the sea can go wherever it wants. A train, which I liken to your typical token, can go forward and backward. That's it. But what the DAO allows pTGC to do is pivot and move based on market conditions, like Zen just highlighted. I just think that's so cool, man, because you can like withhold funds. You can like sit on this Treasury wallet while and speculate that Pulse is going to go up. And once it goes up, then you inject you do something with the Treasury funds. I think it's brilliant. I just love it. So if we injected, I'm on the Moon Math calculator right now. If we injected $300,000 into pTGC right now, the price, the impact on the price would be a 1.18x, which is significant. It would bring it to 30417. And right now it is 3544. I just think that's so cool, guys.
Yeah, I don't think the right word is like we could speculate with it, because that's like the last thing I try to, tell the DAO, like, the DAO to do is I don't want the people who operate with the DAO and the people who are partaking in the DAO to look at this as funds that we should be speculating with. I think the fact is to just be smart about how it's utilized, right? Like you said, is if there's a weather going on, if you're in a storm and this fire source, pTGC is the source of life for this community, or this DAO is in somewhat the kindling going into the fire, you can stand there and try to keep your fire alive throughout a huge storm, where I kind of consider where crypto is right now is pretty much a storm. there's been 4 monthly red candles on Ethereum where there technically should have been 4 green candles for Ethereum if we're in alt season. So this has been a weird environment in general. So I consider this like, hey, this is a storm. Well, you have options, right? You could sit out there in the storm with all of your timber and let all that timber get soaking wet, possibly the fire die anyways. And then when the storm passes, you have to start from square one. Or you could take some of that kindling, you can take your flame, bring it to a shelter, wait for the storm to pass, and then bring that back out, and then start right back up where you left off with all dry kindling in a fresh fire. And I almost think that's the opposite of speculation. That's just pre-planning, and that's setting up your environment for a success either way.
Yep. I like that. Who's got some comments or questions? Anybody want to come up and speak? Otherwise, you get to listen to me and Zen.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that, man.
How you doing, Mando?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome.
Joined vacation after Vegas, and just it's a beautiful ride on Pulse Chain. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
I'm super happy about kind of watching what's been going on. You know, crazy little announcement yesterday from Nuclear about the SEC again. I don't know if you saw somebody just kind of like dumped, got it, did a little, fear dump yesterday.
Of which token?
Oh, Pulse Chain.
Okay.
It dumped to a new low real quick. We got wicked right back up, but yeah. pTGC is just looking. It's just looking great right here for what it is.
Yeah.
Very excited that there's a lot of people that are very excited about being able to pick it up at these levels. So trying to get money.
Yeah, this is good. And all the while, we're being rewarded because of the volatility. The holders are being rewarded because the contract is constantly paying the holders, stakers. That's how it works. We love volatility. Price go up, we get rewarded. Price go down, we get rewarded. And all the action in between, our wallets are just being contributed to.
Yeah, you know what I'm really enjoying is just the steadfastness of the ecosystem and just the ease of use of it. You don't have to think. You don't have to sit there trying to chase every swing and swing high and swing low and every carrot and every. It's just right now with the prices low, there's way more tokens coming into the wallet because of the price. But it's a great time to accumulate.
Yes. I guess we can basically say that about 3 times compared to previous all-time high, there are about 3 times as many tokens coming into our wallet. And what that means is that once we go back to previous all-time high, those tokens are going to be 3 times more.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Banana. That's one thing. As price goes higher, if volume isn't increasing in that same magnitude, you will receive less tokens. That's how the system operates. If volume multiplies out evenly, then you're receiving the same amount of tokens. If prices drop and volume stays the same, you're actually receiving more quantity of tokens. So as long as prices get back to where they once was or higher, these dips are great opportunities. They're buying and burning more of the supply at a cheaper rate. They're adding LP between our asset and PLS or whatever asset the DAO decides to do at cheaper prices. And also the tokens people are getting in reflection to reward are at higher quantities.
Zen, there's a question in the chat from Edmund Tony. He says, hello, I just wanted to ask something. Why, for every single good new market still going down? And he rephrases this. For example, someone buying a lot of Bitcoin and Bitcoin still goes down. Thank you.
Well, I assume even though someone's buying, there's probably people still selling. I think a lot of people around this time thought this time would be around the time that they possibly could be taking profits in this cycle, due to, if you paid attention to previous cycles, the alt season would be lining up around right now. And the market doesn't always work on how people plan. Usually it doesn't work how people plan, or it wouldn't be the market. The market's, that's one thing about our system, is it doesn't really care about what the market does. It moves up and down. We just generate revenue off of it until the time is right. We utilize pretty much the only guarantee of the market to generate revenue. But yeah, I think, some people or some entities are probably taking advantage of the dip, and some people are just wanting to get out. And, that's fine too. They're obviously afraid. I believe they're afraid of possibly round tripping the entire bag if we are going into a bear market. I don't believe we're going into a bear market, but possibly some people just don't even want to risk that, right? The market didn't play out how they thought it would this cycle, so they're most likely just realizing some of their capital back into less risky assets, I would assume.
Okay. Jim,
yeah, I would just say, the market is a $1.6 trillion market right now, right? And we're looking at about an $84,000 Bitcoin. Guys, that's still such a small amount of money for the global markets. I mean, it's technically just fair. It's not even anywhere near just the size of the commodity of gold. I think gold's around 8 to 9 trillion. So it's still in its infancy, this thing. Mm-hmm. And you got to zoom way out, because the world's going the way of cryptography. It's just that simple. These are just short-term fluctuations in the middle of a market.
Jim Horton would like to hear our thoughts on when we think Ethereum will make its move. He said, I see larger players buying, and I believe they also can manipulate prices.
Yeah, I think I saw something yesterday that Trump's accumulated a decent amount of ETH in the last week. So he's obviously taking advantage of these cheap prices, which I think is good for our system, considering that he should be in office for the next 4 years. And yeah, big players can definitely manipulate the system. I do think that, again, too many people had the exact same plan, so the market most likely has to do either a bear trap or just a consolidation period to let people who don't plan on holding longer to higher prices out, so then it can move on without them. It's just my personal opinion. I don't think the bull run is over. I think this is just a consolidation point that needed to happen. And ETH is primed for a decent move. It hasn't even hit its all-time highs yet. It's running into what needs to be, in my opinion, an altcoin season. We've had a pretty good Bitcoin season to date. We're still above previous all-time highs of last cycle. I think that shows a lot of opportunity on the ETH side, which, in my opinion, equals a lot of opportunity on the Pulse Chain side, and then, rippling down effect opportunity on the pTGC and UFO side due to those being so connected. Timeline, though, who knows? But for me, the timeline isn't to, in particular, especially due to the fact that I look at even the timeline for Pulse Chain, the fact that Pulse Chain's still at these lows, it doesn't feel like a blessing when you're in the trenches of the lows, but when it goes back to, you know, in an uptrend or higher highs or back up to SAC, it feels so rewarding that we're down here again, because our system utilizes these dips to create such a stronger foundation and grow that much stronger, redistribute supply, buy and burn supply, add more LP. It's used these dips of Pulse Chain to become such a larger machine than it was the first run up, like a year ago, right? A year ago, Pulse Chain was close to 0.0002, which is ultimately its all-time high. Not like the launch all-time high, but it's like all-time high that came more naturally. And when we were at those highs, the machine was actually smaller than it is today. But now our machine is the same size or bigger than it was at the all-time highs, but we're at all-time lows. So what's that tell us? In the last year, even though Pulse Chain hasn't technically gone up at all, it's down like probably, what is that, 80% from its all-time highs. We're up, and our liquidity's up. Our distribution is better. Our buy and burn is up. So we have so many metrics that are just up and stronger, which makes it so when the market does move in our favor, our foundation for the growth is so much better. And we're going to be able to withstand the growth of what the market gives us so much better than we could have if the market ran the previous time, right?
Yep. And we are 80% down from the previous all-time high. You nailed it.
Yeah. And I would say too, you know, that the longevity of the system, the sustainability of the system is there. The system is just garnering more holders. The trust of the system is there. You know, the current holders are there. The people who have left, they're still staring at it. You know, the longer we go, and the longer that the machine just keeps doing what it's doing, people just keep looking back at pTGC and the ecosystem as a place that essentially is just a store of value on the chain. You know, when you take that position, or when you take one of those main positions, you know, when people are taking profits, they're taking profits and coming back and stacking that bag. You know, there's not a lot of things on any blockchain that has the consensus of the overall community of that chain that this thing is something that you probably want to have a bag of. We've weathered so many storms so far that it's obvious, guys. I mean, we were talking to, whether we were Vegas, and the consensus in Vegas with everybody was, you know, they love pTGC. They love the ecosystem. They know what it is. They know it's here for the long haul. And it's become kind of a staple on chain. This is just opportunity, is all that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, smooth sail doesn't create good sailors. So all these rough environments, this Pulse Chain being pretty rough as far as being an environment for growth, as far as all tokens, to date, I think it's going to be the best environment when Pulse Chain starts to take, but until that time, it is, you know, a stormy sea. But what this is doing is it's just battle testing our ship and our crew. And our crew is getting stronger, our ship is getting stronger, or not stronger, but it's showing that it can withstand this environment. Well, what happens when the storm stops? What happens when it's clear waters and, you know, promised land is A-okay? Then there's nothing really in front of us that could stop us. So it's nice to kind of weather through this kind of stuff at the beginning. And, you know, whoever wants to stay on the ship becomes stronger community, and people who get scared off the ship ultimately leave on a life raft.
Yeah, I've been watching too personally. You know, there's kind of only a couple people. Like, you're either leaving Pulse Chain altogether, or you're just selling out of everything into Pulse, and then, you know, kind of capitulating into the gas token. That hasn't been a very good idea. Or you're selling into stables. That's probably been the best idea. Or you're chasing carrots. A lot of the carrot chasing has just been a disaster for a lot of people, unfortunately. With whatever it's been, especially in an environment like this, it's just been horrible. Some people win, but the people who just stay where they're at and just continue to accumulate the tokens, I cannot help but think that those are going to be, just from previous experience and just from just common sense, that those are going to be the people that really come out on top. You go into other things and it's just the charts still come down 80%, and you run the risk of a lot of different things. But it's been interesting. When I was looking at the chart the other day too, I was looking at where we were at now. It was only a 5-week run from 100 million market cap to a 300-something million dollar market cap. So it's like 5 weeks. It took 5 weeks to go up and 5 weeks to come down. That's how fast it reverses.
Yeah, I think when the market turns in the favor, when we find a good foundation and we can start moving in the upwards direction, going back to all-time highs can come very, very quickly, especially if the network we're built on starts working in our favor, especially if some of the tokens that we're bonded with start working in our favor. You have to keep in mind, for the last 5 weeks, nothing has been working in our favor. So, of course, the machine needed to consolidate a little bit, but what that actually gave is opportunity for anyone who was sitting on the sideline saying, I wish I had a little bit more, but I don't want to buy this, this big green candle, or, oh, I just found out about this, but I'll DCA in now. I have some more on the side. I look at it like this is possibly a great DCA point. There's a decent retracement on the blockchain, decent retracement on pTGC and UFO in general. If there was a DCA point, if you study the previous parts of the chart, every time Pulse Chain has tapped these levels, pTGC has done a 45x off of these levels. And that's a decent move for a sustainable system that has a large community and that has a large amount of liquidity, right? Like, yeah, I guess that could be done in days on a meme coin that launches. But the truth is at that point, you're just gambling, right? You're just hoping you hit, and most of the time you lose. But with this, there's a lot of history to study and pay attention to that, in my opinion, makes it a lot more of a long-term play and not just putting, 1,000 on red, right? Or 1,000 on black, or just spinning a slot machine. And you kind of have to ask yourself, why are you in crypto? Are you here just to play the slot machine? Are you here to play more long-term plays with sustainability? Is a portion of your portfolio for the slot machine in the long-term plays? I believe there's room for both, right? I think this space has both situations. But sadly, what I see a lot of times is people taking their long-term play funds because that's the only thing they have left, because they've slot machined all their money away. And then they have this one good long-term play that's actually worked very, very well for them. And they'll start pulling from that long-term play to keep playing the slot machines. And then they just lose more of their long-term play. And then the sad truth is the long-term play actually gets hurt from that, because as people pull from the long-term play to go play the slots and lose their money, because the slots are designed to take the money from you, not give you money. You have to understand a lot of these tokens that launch every single day, thousands of them, they're being put out there to take your money, not give you money. And unless you can beat them to the punch, then yes, you make out decent. Most of the time you're not beating them to the punch, or you wouldn't even need to tap into your store of value. This is the honest truth. I don't know who needs to hear it. Imagine if, Amanda, you were talking about the carrots that are dangling in front of people. There's been thousands that have came out since pTGCs came out. I literally see a new story every single week, and I do see people chase it with some of their funds. Imagine if people just didn't tap into the pTGC value to try to play these gambles and then lose their money, where their own portfolio would be at, not only because they didn't lose their tokens, but also where the price of pTGC would be at today. And I know that's too good to ask because everyone's going to take profits at their own time, but pay attention to that. Understand that the most important thing for a system is buying and holding. And one thing that's very, very interesting about this system is it rewards you for holding. And it actually uses your value that's in the system when you're holding to generate more value for you and your whole entire community. There's a lot of mechanics built into this code to make it sustainable with or without you. And I think it's proven that a lot of the people who have left in the last year and a half to go chase a carrot have regretted that decision. And there will be more carrots in the future. There's carrots right now. 5 years from now, there will still be carrots. There will always be a new shiny object, but make sure you understand that the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. And I personally believe pTGC and UFO are the needles in the haystack. And there's a lot of hay painted like needles out there. And just be careful with what I believe could be a life-changing situation.
Yeah, well said. The Crispy Man shared the images of the UFO and pTGC web. Thank you, Crispy. Would you like to comment on these? I have the UFO up on my screen. And if you want to comment, I value your comments. Obviously, he and I can talk about it when we have him on. But if you want to, go ahead and comment.
Well, I'm not on YouTube right now, but
okay.
I'll get them though. Hold on.
Okay.
I just sit behind my computer.
Sure. It's got UFO in the center. It says Pulse Chain Liquidity Web, UFO logo in the center. And then on the outside, you got the pTGC UFO pair, UFO eHex, UFO Hex, UFO Inc. And it includes the amount in LP, which is really cool. And I guess while we're on the topic, Zen, tell us what excites you about UFO. I mean, I look at UFO as the brother to pTGC. It was just born 6 months later. I don't look at it anymore as like the little brother. They're almost like twin brothers. Yet, but I'd like to hear from you. Like, what excites you about UFO? What's the unique selling proposition?
So one thing before we go into that, when you do have Crispy on, if he does come on, I hope he does. He has like all these toggles that he can do with this to where he can adjust the web and see how pTGC and UFO compared against other assets on chain. And one of the toggles that I think he pulled in the past, I was watching a video that he was doing live that I thought was super, super cool, is there was a way to show pTGC and UFO's liquidity compared to everything else on chain with RH tokens. So it was showing which assets on chain had the most liquidity with RH tokens. So with the tokens that actually have real liquidity bonded to them, you could even probably add in, because what it was interesting is when you just show all the tokens with as much liquidity as possible, we're still ranking really, really high, right? Because we, in general, have some of the most liquidity. But when you take away the tokens that have liquidity with other tokens that don't have that much liquidity, like not to like FUD or anything like that, but the example I would use is like some of the Atropa systems, right? They'll have tons of liquidity with other Atropa tokens, but there's no really large liquidity exit with real like RH assets or bridged in assets on chain. So it kind of, and that's nothing against them. I think that their structure is amazing. I just think it sometimes makes it hard to see which assets on chain have like the RH liquidity. So he had a toggle where he could pull that away, and it showed how massive pTGC and UFO are compared to pretty much every asset on chain. Like there's a couple other tokens that have decent liquidity with RH tokens, but it really makes pTGC and UFO stand out as far as like the largest liquidity provider, non-RH token on chain.
Okay. Cool.
So when you're live with them, that would be super awesome to kind of show, because this DApp that he's created, he has so many toggles and ways to move this around. It's super, super sweet. And it visually, like, really, I think, opens up users' mind to who's been really taking advantage of these dips on chain and building the foundation of their system for when the chain is successful, who's set up for success, right?
Okay. I made a note. We'll ask him to do that when he's on.
Yeah, it's super awesome. I saw him pulling these toggles, like, and I've said super awesome 1,000 times, but he was live and he was pulling all these toggles, and it was just adjusting automatically off of, you know, obviously off of like Deck Screen or wherever he's pulling this data from. But it really shows users, like, in my opinion, because it's a liquidity web, like a DApp built around liquidity webs, how much control pTGC and UFO have over the network liquidity.
Whoa. I look forward to seeing it.
Well, I think that the last time we looked, kind of just prior to this downtrend, I think that the LP web for the ecosystem had, what was it, like 20% of all the LP in PulseX?
Yeah, so for what PulseX was saying was like the PulseX liquidity, and I don't know like how accurate that is, but just based off of what PulseX was saying, it was saying like PulseX had $100 million in V1 and V2 liquidity, and when you added up our liquidity via like the dApps that grab this data, we were sitting at, 20 mil, or it was like 150 million in the DEX, and we were sitting at 30 mil, 40 mil. So if you run those numbers, we were sitting at like, I think it was 20%. If I remember correct, it was more like 10%. But the pTGC and UFO ecosystem was showing via some of the numbers we were putting together that we had like 10% of the entire DEX liquidity, which as a sub token of a DEX, that's massive.
Yes, it is.
Majority of that being RH tickers and stuff like that. I don't know if that's grabbing all the little tokens that exist out there, or if that's just excluded, or if we're even excluded. I don't know how accurate our sources are, because if those sources are accurate, like that proves how big of a monster pTGC and UFO is, like, more than anything. Because as Pulse Chain is successful, as PulseX is successful, as far as the DEX, as far as RH being successful, we hold so much of these assets within our system, and not just hold them like to back our asset, but we generate revenue off of them. So with a successful blockchain, with a successful system, it is forced to increase the price and value and LP of the assets that are connected, which is pTGC and UFO.
Are you looking at the image on your computer now?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I think I lost you, Banana.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
So what was I looking at? Sorry.
Oh, the image from Crispy Man of UFO. And then I wanted you to like highlight your unique selling proposition. Like what excites you about UFO?
Yeah, I kind of went over that earlier. The thing that I find super interesting about UFO is it's a one of its kind design, right? There's never that I know of in the existence of crypto where there's been a token with an entire farm built around that token to give that specific token value. Not only value because every single LP pair is connected to that token. So obviously that's giving the specific token value in that aspect. Like usually with a system, the LP is what defines all the value of the token. Doesn't matter how high your price is. If there's only $100,000 of LP there, you really don't have much value there at all. But so the web is built around giving the token value as far as backing the value of the token. But also the whole entire web is working to making that specific token more scarce and paying the people who are providing that LP or just holding the token's price up in general. And that's what I find super, super unique about UFO is I don't know of a system that exists in this fashion. I think that it's currently being looked over just because people don't understand what it could be. But I do think once Pulse Chain starts moving up and the machine does start to turn on and the value starts revaluing, it's going to open up people's eyes. You kind of saw this already when Pulse Chain woke up a little bit from its bottom a few months ago. UFO ran up a 45x because I think the moving up of the blockchain started to show users what this actually is and how it actually works. And it doesn't only just show users, it actually turns on the machines in the background as well. And I think UFO is very, very unique. It's never really been done before. The design is very, very unique. And I think it's going to drive a lot of value personally. I think the design has a lot of value. But also the thing I love about it too is the whole entire farm, which is not only supporting the UFO token and the holders of UFO, it's also making pTGC more scarce at the same time.
It burns more pTGC than pTGC does. And it's like you've highlighted to me, UFO is not just a farming token. There's more to it than that.
Well, you know what I like? You know what I like about it, Prairie?
Tell me.
I like that because I'm one of those guys that believes that most people are not LP people just because either they just don't understand it or they just don't like the thought of impermanent loss. There's just a couple hurdles mentally for certain people. But the unique thing about it, I kind of coined the term a hive farm.
Yes.
It's a hive farm because as somebody who just holds the token, right, I'm leveraging the individuals that are willing to provide liquidity in that system. Because the more that they provide LP, that capital that's being injected into that liquidity web goes to work for me, who's not providing LP, and I'm actually earning more rewards from those people who are. You don't see that in another system. You don't see someone benefiting from larger players providing LP when they're not providing LP, and actually in some instances seeing higher APY because they're in a smaller pool. And I think that's a very important part that most people don't get. Is that, when you lock in the shares down here lower, if you're a LP provider, it becomes very lucrative earning that pulse. But you're not required to do that with this system. And the LP providers and the capital that's being provided in the farm for that liquidity web, it actually really benefits just token holders who are getting that APY.
Indeed, it does. Because those tokens the tokens that are in LP are not receiving reflections. The tokens that are being held in people's wallets are receiving those reflections. So the holders of UFO are essentially, you could kind of you could turn it in your mind like this, or like earning double reflections in a sense. You're earning more reflections than you would if everybody was holding UFO liquid. Everyone would be earning less reflections. But because there are so many tokens in LP, the holders are earning more reflections.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that in this specific system, unlike with pTGC, the LP providers are earning PLS, which is a very it's a very nice way of rewarding, because it's an agnostic way to reward, right? So those people aren't fixed into the system. They're not being told, you have to just keep stacking this or stacking that. They're given the gas token, the gas coin of the network, which then means that they can actually recompound back into pTGC or recompound back into UFO if they choose, or bolster up the LPs if they choose, or leave the network if they choose, right? So you have an agnostic way of paying out in that sense, and it becomes attractive because a percentage of that pulse always goes back into the system. A percentage doesn't. A percentage waits for potential dips. We kind of watch this stuff, right? We watched it from the beginning. There's always a percentage of the pulse from UFO that goes back into the system, similar to pTGC. That wouldn't be there if you were forcing the payout in a token within the system, which is attractive.
Right.
Another thing to add real quick, it also is when it gets injected in, right? Like the fact that it's coming in PLS, it gives the user the ability to make the decision when, if they want, right? The first question is if, and if they say, yes, I do want to enter this back into pTGC and UFO due to them outperforming pulse chain so long in a trend, but then they get to ask the question, well, when do I want to enter it back in? Because if they're receiving it in UFO or pTGC, you're getting it automatically with what the market has given that price at that time of that APY distribution. But if you're receiving it in PLS, you can actually hold on to that PLS and then make a decision more strategically on when you enter that back into pTGC and UFO. For an example, right now might be a great opportunity because the ratio of pTGC and UFO is currently at the bottom of a trend, which if you're paying attention to the chart, is usually that's a better time than doing it at the top of the trend, right? And you can actually make more of a strategic move on when you inject that PLS back into the DCA of pTGC and UFO.
Well, you're looking at a chart where this has only happened, I believe, 2 other times, where you've had a retracement in the ratio against pTGC and UFO against PLS. So if you're holding PLS here, obviously past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but the last couple of times it was at this ratio. If you swapped your pulse back into it, you did very well with it.
Yeah, and obviously that requires an additional step too. So what I've done is I hold some UFO and I have some in LP. So I'm earning UFO and I'm earning PLS. I'm good with the UFO. That's moving up against the layer 1 PLS. The PLS I have to do something with. Like I choose to. I don't have to do anything with it, but I choose to. And that means an extra step for me. But what is nice about that extra step is I do get to choose what I do with the pulse in the sense that I can swap it for whatever token I want. But the UFO that's liquid, for me, the decision is already made. I'm earning more UFO, and I'm actually very happy about that. I like UFO.
Yeah, and one thing to pay attention to is right now, I think UFO is only at like a $30 million market cap, and there's roughly $10 million in liquidity backing that $30 million market cap, which is, roughly 33% market cap to liquidity ratio. And as far as being a place where you possibly store decent amounts of value, that ratio is very, very strong. And that's in a deflationary token that also gives you APY for just holding it. So mechanically, it's a great place to park large amounts of funds because, one, there's enough liquidity to make you feel safe. Two, mechanically, it can make you feel safe because it's constantly making the tokens more scarce. And you're earning additional tokens just for sitting there holding. Even if you're not an LP provider, all the people who are providing that LP are actually supporting you as they're supporting themselves at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique, right? So both pTGC and UFO are ideas that have really never been done before in crypto, which I think is super sweet for Pulse Chain, right? That we have these unique products that are here on Pulse Chain that don't exist on other chains. Once Pulse Chain, starts bringing in the gates open a little bit and new users start coming in, I think these products can stand out as products that people have to come over to Pulse Chain to get involved with, right? You can't get involved with a product like this on other chains, especially once Pulse Chain revalues a little bit and these liquidity pools revalue to larger amounts. You will have to come to Pulse Chain to actually be part of these systems, which helps onboard the Pulse Chain and makes Pulse Chain a better system in general. But more importantly, what I'm talking about is both of these ideas have shown to flourish in an environment that's not in their favor. Well, when the environment turns in the favor of these tokens, if they start to do the things that I think a lot of the community members believe that they can do, is where I think they'll really start to garner the attention of the general public. And again, these are ideas that have never actually fully been done to this extent before. So it's actually fun and interesting at the same time. When you really sit and pay attention to it, it's beyond interesting to see how these things are functioning at these low levels, because you can mathematically make predictions of how they will operate at higher levels of themselves and the blockchain. And when you actually extend that math outwards, it starts to generate numbers that ultimately sound like so amazing that you're starting to question your own math.
Yep.
Yeah, let me make this point too, because we're talking about the thickness of liquidity. Liquidity is what matters, period. If you don't have capital backing your cryptocurrency, you have a fake cryptocurrency. And you have a lot of people that will talk about the fee, right? But the truth is that even if you don't have a token that has a fee, but you have no liquidity, try putting $3,000 worth of Pulse Chain into that thing, and you're paying a 4 to 5% fee in slippage. So that's not true. Even though something doesn't have a fee, it doesn't mean you're not paying one because they have no liquidity. So as the price, as the liquidity web of pTGC continues to get stronger and thicker and deeper, it becomes a situation where you actually have no slippage fee because there's so much liquidity for the same person to buy the same, 3,000, 5,000, just kind of the average person getting their feet wet. There is no slippage fee because there's so much liquidity, right? So the fee that is being generated isn't a fee that just goes two shits to the wind. The fee that actually is being generated is 100% going back to the system to benefit and strengthen your own investment and the investment of the community. So when you're looking at something, just remember, when you go to swap $5,000, which is nothing in this space, if you're paying 5% slippage, but they're telling you that there's no token tax or no fee, that's just not true. You're not looking at it the right way, right? Because you're in an illiquid system. As this system grows, a $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 swap, you're going to have nominal slippage, almost no slippage at all, right? So instead of getting into a system where there is no fee, but you're paying the same amount of fee and slippage, Here, that fiat transaction is always used 100% of the time in a transparent way to benefit every single one of us as token holders, whether they're coming in or whether they're coming out. And you just can't argue with that. Liquidity is everything.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mando. You'll see tokens launching every single day, and you'll find users willing to eat a 10% in, a 20% out to get their profits, if they're in profits, or even sometimes a 20% out, just because they're scared that random gamble they got into is tanking and going to die like 99% of stuff. And they're fine doing that slippage, and they might have just eaten 30% on the in and out on this micro cap that just launched today. But then when you tell them about a sustainable system where the 5% in, 5% out is going to a contribution to the foundation and growth of the system and the current community that's holding it up, and they like get unattracted about it, right? They're just like, oh, I don't like fees. And it's just like, well, a lot of the things you're playing with have a fee. It's just the fees built into the fact that there's no value backing that token. And
well, and the slippage you pay, it goes to nowhere. It's just a black hole that helps nobody. It's going to liquidity providers. That's it. It just goes bye-bye. The nice thing about pTGC and UFO is that when you use the web, when you use the capital, it constantly benefits the token holders, right? You're either earning APY or you're earning yield or you're sticking up the liquidity web or you're getting paid APY in the form of tokens when you're going in and out of these LP pairings, right? But when you do it with these shit coins, you pay the same 3, 5, 7%, even higher slippage, but there's no benefit to anybody.
Yeah. Usually tokens aren't getting burned. There's not more LP getting added. There's not a DAO that's accumulating funds. There's not APY just for holders. There a lot of the things that make the system sustainable and thrive as far as a DeFi protocol. That just goes to price going up and down. But people don't even realize if the majority of people will ride a price up, and then a majority of them will also ride it back down. They ended up at square one, and there's been volume and volatility to that protocol, but none of that volume and volatility actually helped their specific bags if they rode it all the way up and all the way down. They didn't earn any more of a scarce token. The tokens didn't become more scarce. The LP didn't grow at all. There's not a DAO that's accumulating funds. They literally just round tripped their whole entire system. Even if with pTGC or UFO, even if we round trip, right? Like, I think you're saying we went 5 weeks up and 5 weeks down. So this is 10 weeks and we're at the same price we were 10 weeks ago at pTGC. Yeah, price-wise, we're at the same price, but that doesn't mean every metric round tripped. We actually have a more scarce supply. We actually have more funds in the DAO. We actually have more quantity of LP tokens in the system. Each user has earned additional pTGC and UFO throughout the whole entire time. Tokens are more distributed now. So there's a lot of metrics that have actually not round trip and actually have stacked forwards, making it so the next time we go up, we're more sustainable in the next move.
Well, that's a really great point. That when you have big swing highs and swing lows like that, there's all these phenomenal KPIs that are happening in the background. And when you do a swing high and a swing low like that, you always end up with a more distributed ledger, with a more distributed token supply, with more holders that have less supply, with more tokens that have been bought and burned, with billions and billions and billions of pulse chain that's sitting in the DAO, right? With tons of strategic things that can be done to benefit the token holders with the pulse chain. And it's not ever the reverse. That's never inverted, right? It's always, because of the design of the system, Whenever you have massive volatility, it only benefits the system, especially for long-term token holders. It's just that simple. It can't do the other way around. I've just personally watched, this swing high and come down with everything that's been going on with the markets, the broader markets, and with Pulse Chain. And, unfortunately, there's just a lot of people that get scared, and that's totally normal. People that just aren't as seasoned as others, they just get scared out of their positions, or they can't handle seeing, $500,000 of profit turn into $250,000 of profit in a week. They just can't handle it and they sell, right? Fine, that's fine. But those tokens are now distributed. We were sitting on about 4.1 billion tokens in the LP when you go to the stats page for quite a good amount of time. I think right now it's more like 5.5 billion. So there's a little bit more supply. I don't know if that's correct, Prairie, but there's a little bit more supply in there now. And when you have more supply in that part of the pie, the price is down because that means that there's more tokens pushed into the LP. But that also means that there's a ton of those tokens that were now redistributed. They're available for people to buy. There's the token amount isn't as centralized in certain people's hands that were weaker hands. And the people who haven't sold, they've got more of those tokens now. So that's what I love about the system. There's just so many KPIs built in that over time frames just benefit the longer term token holders.
Yeah, there's 5.55 billion tokens in that pie chart right now. I assume you saw my tweet from earlier this week that highlighted the fact that once we go to previous all-time high, there will be less tokens available than when we were at the all-time high by 31%. We talked about that earlier.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, again, it depends on how we get to that all-time high. If we get to that all-time high due to price performance of pTGC or UFO, yes, there will 100% be way less tokens in the liquidity pools due to pTGC and UFO doing those X's against the market. But if we get the X's to our all-time high from the market, from our connected assets, it would be like we could go to all-time high tomorrow and
It would be the same.
Just be the same, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on what we're doing against the market. It could happen either way. The one thing that we were talking about earlier, Mando, which I find super interesting is, when we have this price reduction, let's say a user came in or even a DAO came in and did a buy and burn or whatever with, let's say, $10,000. What we get at this level is actually 3 times the amount of tokens compared to what we could have gotten at the peak, right? So with value entering into the system, if it's a buy and burn or if it's a strong holder, it's actually making it to where more tokens are being pulled out of the LP pool with the same amount of value injected comparatively to where if we're at the top. And what I'm talking about is, let's say that example happened where Pulse Chain just went up, 3x by tomorrow. It went to sack rate, right? We'd be sitting at all-time high. Well, the user, to make our asset more scarce, would also have to spend 3 times the amount of money. So by Pulse Chain being down at these levels, with every user we get in or with every buy and burn that we get in, we're able to spend 3 times less to get the same amount of scarcity impact. Or if we spend even amount, we're getting 3 times more to get the scarcity impact at these levels, which utilizes these cheap levels to create a stronger foundation for when we do go back up to those higher levels.
Yeah, and that's very strong when you take in consideration the amount of Pulse Chain that's being accumulated.
Yeah, I look at it as, every single time Pulse Chain has tapped these levels, the opportunity has been insane. the amount of X's users have made off of taking advantage of pTGC and UFO at these pulse chain low levels has been massive moves, 45X moves. Does everyone take advantage when pulse chain is at lows? No, because there's fear in the market, etc. But if we do study the past, it has been some of the best entry points in pTGC and UFO that's existed, right? Even if you look at it as far as it went up and came back down, well, when pulse chain retaps these exact same levels, right? You re-got the same entry points in pulse chain, but every single time pulse chain hits these re-entry points, you don't get the re-entry points in pTGC again. It's landing like 10x higher every single time. So pTGC, when pulse chain hits the lows, this floor that we're at right now, is constantly hitting higher highs. So if you took advantage of the previous pulse chain low getting into pTGC, even when pulse chain re-hits those lows, you're still 10x higher than you were the previous pulse chain low. So even if you were to DCA again, right, you're like, oh, we're at another pulse chain low. You're DCAting 10 times higher. But then what that tells me is, if you study the past, anyone who's DCAing at these levels, due to our past, it shows that this might be the lowest level you ever get on pTGC ever again. And that's no guarantee. This is just past performance. We're talking about what's happened. But, it could go lower. I'm just saying that in the past, if you took advantage of the lows of pulse chain, those were the lows of pTGC that's ever existed once pulse chain moved up again.
Yeah, but at the same time, the last time we were here under 100 million, we had under 10,000 holders, and in this range between, I would say, the 60 to 100 million just before the Interful FUD, we started to have a lot of new users coming in as well. A lot of these users stake their tokens out 10 years. So you have a ton of new wallets. You have a ton of new holders. You have big players on Pulse Chain that have come in, taken large amounts off the market that are staked out 10 years. So it's not the same KPIs that we were at the last time as that we are now. It's less tokens, it's more holders, it's more tokens locked up, it's more LP, it's more distribution. I don't see how it doesn't become what you said. Somebody would just have to completely capitulate out of their position, and it would be a wick on the chart, right?
Yeah, and more what my point was is, we don't know where the bottom of the market is. We don't know where the bottom point of pTGC is, or where the bottom point of UFO or Pulse Chain or PulseX or ETH or Bitcoin is, right? But what I was getting at is, DCAing is a very, very good strategy at especially very, very low levels. And for anyone who is outside of the pTGC or UFO system, either looking to get their first position or DCA into their position or re-enter into their system, levels like there was 2 days ago, where pTGC hit a low due to someone capitulating their bag, those might be the lowest levels that exist ever for pTGC. Even if Pulse Chain round tripped, went up and then re-round tripped all the way back to these levels, right? That might be the lowest pTGC you ever see forever. There's a possibility. Yeah, Pulse Chain could go lower, pTGC could go lower. That's why I'm saying DCA is a real strategy. But for any user that's, looking to become part of the grays or just store some of their value in a very unique system to Pulse Chain, whatever the reason is, you want to, be part of the system for the longevity, for the sustainability, for the APY, for the buy and burn that's written in code, for, all these factors that the reason we're having this conversation right now, the reason why it's been one of the best performers on Pulse Chain. If you're looking to take a position, in the past, these have been, in general, the best entry points. And if you took advantage of these entry points, the entry points never came again, and possibly could never come again for the existence of Pulse Chain. Especially if Pulse Chain doesn't re-round trip back to these lows. Like on the next move, I do believe a lot of us are hoping that Pulse Chain makes its move up and never comes back down to these levels, right? Well, what happens if Pulse Chain never comes back to the lows? Well, in the past, that's been the only point you've gotten extreme discounts on pTGC, is when Pulse Chain has hit these lows. Well, what happens if the next low of Pulse Chain, let's say, is in the next bear market or whatever, and that's only SAC rate? Well, currently SAC rate's been like our highs. So you have to imagine, like, if you are looking at this system and thinking about it, yes, it could go lower tomorrow. Yes, it could go lower next week. But DCA point wise, I personally look at these as great entry points, and it might be worth doing so at this level, at a lower level, at a little higher level, and trying to find this floor, because where the floor creates, where Pulse Chain is at these lows, it might not ever come back to again, ever.
Yeah, that's well said. And that's just all backed by data, guys. It's verifiable.
That's all based on the history. The history is never a guarantee of the future, but you can study the past to help predict the future, right? And you can't predict it 100%. Obviously, there's all these externalities, but we have a year and a half of data to look back at that we used to not have to look back at when we educated on pTGC. So I do think it's important to use our year and a half of data to help with the education, right? And that's just what it says, is when every time Pulse Chain has hit its lows, those lows has marked the lows of pTGC. Even though Pulse Chain has retapped these lows 3 times now, pTGC and UFO have never retapped the lows. You have never gotten that opportunity again.
Yeah, well, it's because there's less tokens available. There's more tokens that have been distributed to long-term holders, right? There's more LP that's been bought and distributed into liquidity pool pairings. The system just doesn't stop doing what the system is designed to do. So it's a very powerful reality. Pulse Chain did just swing down to what looks like yesterday somebody capitulated, getting scared with that stupid SEC announcement and completely fumbled their bags, and it's just right back up to essentially the SAC rate of whales. So, I'll just reiterate that too. The sacrifice price is basically right now just right around where the whales paid for it. It's a little bit more, but it's a triple bottom at what I believe currently the current price of Pulse Chain, this range. This is SAC rate. It's not 3 zeros and a 1. This is the sacrifice price, because it's not the people who paid $1,000 or $500 in the sacrifice. It's the people who put in hundreds of thousands or millions that determine the actual rate. So when you look at it that way, Pulse is currently at the bottom at SAC price on a triple bottom. But the system, pTGC, has mechanics and just a unique value proposition that Pulse Chain doesn't offer people, right? And that's why it continues to go up on a trend against the underlying system. So yeah, I would much rather own Pulse than own pTGC than Pulse, because it is a proxy of Pulse. It's a claim check on Pulse, but it just has much stronger mechanics, right? And that's why we're in crypto. So the gas coin doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that does all the X, right? It can be the things that are built on top of it. That's what Hex was on ETH, or a SHIB on ETH. So when you find those things early, and guys, $100 million market cap, you guys know, it's nothing. That's nothing. So yeah, it took 5 weeks to go from where we are now to the previous all-time high, and then 5 weeks to come back down. I think it's a really good place.
Yeah, one thing comparatively to fiat, right? Like the gas token of a blockchain is a great store of value. It's a great asset. But if you think about like fiat compared to an asset, you are able to store value and appreciate your wealth by moving your fiat into an asset, right? You don't keep millions and millions and millions of dollars in fiat if you can go and put it in a vessel that appreciates in price and doesn't inflate like infinitely. So then when you do need to take that value out of that asset, you actually have more of the fiat because you actually turned its form into that asset. We can actually use the same exact idea that happens in real life on blockchain. In this example, the gas token is the transactional currency. This is what's used to move, to pay the fee as far as the transaction goes. But yeah, that transactional currency does have specific functions to help it increase in price, especially compared to fiat. But that doesn't mean it's been mechanically designed in particular to be the massive store of value on chain. That doesn't mean it's actually been designed to do the most X's compared to every single PRC20, every single smart contract that exists on chain. You can actually take that transactional currency and turn it into different forms to get mass appreciation. So then when you do need to come back out of that asset into the transactional currency, you have more of the transactional currency. This is the same way how it works in the real world. This is how it works on blockchain. You just need to find the actual assets to park the transactional currency into, ones that are scarce, ones that are backed by enough value, ones that have the ability to do price appreciation over the transactional currency that you're trading it for. I think pTGC and UFO hit a lot of these boxes people are looking to check. My best example that I love to use is my apple analogy, right? You have the apples that are or apples and oranges, right? You have transactional currency fiat, and then you have the gas token, which could be apples, and then you have oranges, right, which is pTGC or UFO. If you have $100, 100 apples, 100 oranges, well, if you compare the apples to the dollars, 100 apples to $100, they're each worth $1. And then you go to oranges, right? You have 100 oranges and you compare it to the $100. Well, the oranges are worth $1 each. Well, let's say we move the $100 to $200 due to inflation. Well, now, if you're holding dollars or you're working for dollars, you now would need to pay twice as much dollars for the apples or the oranges because they just increase the quantity of dollars that exists. Now, if you held an apple, that's great because now your apple is worth 2 times the amount of value. But if you were an owner of the apple and you're an owner of the transactional currency, it just diluted your value times 2. Now let's go to oranges, which is, in my opinion, an asset that's hyper deflationary. Let's cut that supply in half. Let's say 50 of them just got burned, right? Well, you have 50 oranges to what used to be $100, which is now $200, which is now 4 times. So because you're holding a deflationary asset that's not appreciating, as the environment around you has inflation and appreciates the quantities, it's actually making your deflationary asset even more valuable, making it even a better store of value, making it instead of 2 times more value, actually 4 times. Because 50 can go into 200 4 times. And this is kind of in basic idea, the model of a scarce asset that's hyper deflationary and how it can appreciate in value actually without even anyone purchasing the oranges themselves. This is just due to deflation and fiat appreciating in quantity around our environment. The awesome thing about crypto is actually people can purchase these oranges as well and take those oranges off the market, making them even more scarce, to where you could end up with 5 oranges. This is the basic understandings of how liquidity pools function, right? You have the dollar value and you have people buying it out, and then you mix in the deflationary aspects to it. And this is ultimately in crypto how you can change your life very, very quickly. Ultimately, very little amount of money. And that's why I think a lot of people are here. I think the problem is people do that in extremes and just gamble it. But I don't think you have to always completely gamble to get all the X's you're looking for. You just have to spend a little bit more time and study the products that exist on a completely undervalued chain. And you can find needles in the haystack like pTGC and UFO. Now the next question is, are you able to hold your bag long enough and withstand a couple of the dips and not fumble it too early to where you can actually change your life with that find? It's just like if you found Bitcoin 10 years ago, you could have changed your life if you held on to it. But if you sold it after a 3X and went and got into some random token that failed, well, then you didn't change your life. You just made a 3X and lost all the money. This is the sad truth of how crypto works is a lot of people will exit out of their golden gooses. They'll slaughter their golden goose for a nice meal and to try to find the next golden goose, where they're better off just staying in that system the whole entire time. And for one, they didn't lose sleep. That's one thing that, I think you were mentioning, Mando, pTGC and UFO. You don't have to worry about this or worry about that. It's the easy button. You literally can just get the asset, stake it, hold it, lock it, whatever you want to do. And then you can enjoy your life with your family and your friends. You don't need to worry about this trade, this limit order, this, that. You just get it and then let the machine do its thing. Because when you enter into the system, the value you enter in with is now working for the system in a decentralized way. Just like when you park funds at the bank and they take your money and they go generate money with your money and then they sometimes give you a small portion of it. It operates somewhat in the same fashion, but this system doesn't take your money and go do random things. It's just putting it in the liquidity web, and then the market makers are using the revenue, and then we're generating revenue off of that. And I'm way off topic now, but I'll just...
No, it's true. It's true. And I got to take off here, but I just want to say I back up what you're saying there. I'm not in crypto to trust, white hat hacker dudes. I'm not in crypto to suck middlemen deep. I'm not in crypto to get promises from people. I'm in crypto because I believe in code, right? I don't want to have to trust people to deliver something for me at the core, at the fundamental level, right? And, what I see is a lot of people that came to Pulse Chain and Hex because they learned from Richard Hart on how to not get fucked in this industry. Pardon my French, But what you end up doing is chasing a hope and a wish and a prayer and a dream and a promise, and then it turns into you becoming bipolar as shit because now you're chasing 49 different tokens. And we see it all over the place, right? Everybody has a right to do whatever they want. But my point is the reason why I love pTGC and the Grays ecosystem so much is because it's just a solid rock of Gibraltar. It's transparent. It's unchanging, right? It's sustainable. It's not unsustainable. It's not constantly changing. It's not transparent, and you just have to trust this white hat hacker dude and this white hat hacker dude. No. There's a place for that. That's called the casino. But when you're looking for something that's real and that's sustainable and that over the long term can make you rich and can make you wealthy, the Grays currency on Pulse Chain represents that system in spades, and everybody on the chain knows it. And that's why everybody attacks pTGC and UFO, because that's where all the value is. That's where all the gains always ends up being. So every cycle, every swing high and every swing low, they know, those pTGC and UFO guys, they're sitting on millions of dollars. Let's tell them it's the next pTGC and UFO, right? Do whatever you want. But I think at the core of what Zen's saying is that the system here is transparent. It doesn't change. It just continues to do for its holders what it's designed to do. And there's always going to be a higher floor. There's always going to be a better amount of distributed liquidity. There's always going to be less tokens in supply. And currently, this represents an amazing opportunity, in my opinion, not financial advice, with literally everything at lows. The only thing I think that takes this system down lower is if Bitcoin and ETH capitulate lower, Maybe Bitcoin goes down into the low 70,000s or high 69s for a minute. Maybe ETH goes down to 1,500 or whatever for a minute. I just don't see much more lows. But when you're down here, if you're questioning what to do, in my personal opinion, it's like what he said. Every time this has happened, which is only, I think, 2 other times that we've seen a capitulation against the pulse ratio, this has been a phenomenal place to start dollar cost averaging in to a system that the entire chain knows, likes, trusts, understands. It's very important, guys, to know what you own, when you own, and why you own it, right? As opposed to literally jumping on every single freaking token, causing a taxable event for yourself every single moment of the day. Be smart with your money, guys. I got to take off. Love everybody. Thanks for showing up this morning, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, Mando, and adding to the conversation.
That was a good conversation. I'm getting good feedback on YouTube about it. Everybody loved it.
Any questions that came up or just comments?
Let me see if there's, I got to get caught up here. No comments. I mean, no questions, just comments.
Yeah. One thing that, I think it's obvious that, blockchains thrive off of the casino side of it. But on every single blockchain, there is a place to store value as you make value or a portion of your portfolio where, you just keep that in the safer assets. You play along with other assets. But the majority of stuff out there, you're never going to store value in, right? There's not enough liquidity. There's just ever-changing stuff where there's possibilities of making good gains in those places as well. But you usually just can't store a ton of value in those places. The downside of this for pTGC is people know that people are storing value within the pTGC and UFO kingdom, and they're trying to get into these walls. They're trying to access those funds. Why? Because this is where the majority of the value is held on chain besides RH tickers. So it's an easy place to attack. Understand what you hold and understand why these walls have been built up so high and why there's so much value here. It's because it's trusted, because it's transparent, it's because it's been proven to do what it's been coded to do. It's a unique system that's here on Pulse Chain. That's why people are storing value here. But that being said, there is a lot of opportunity here as well than just storing value. The ability to be able to grab some of these tokens that people are storing value in is very, very important, in my opinion, at these low levels. Because as Pulse Chain grows and as PulseX grows, not only are the assets we are connected to going to grow, not only is our code going to keep doing what it's doing and our holders count can grow and the price of tokens can grow, obviously making them worth more. But what I see could happen is as this ecosystem grows, people will continuously want to store their value in this system. And store of value is pretty much one of the biggest financial sectors that exists. People acquire funds, acquire revenue, acquire value, and they need to store it in a place. They need to store it in a place that's safe. They need to store it in a place that can appreciate, a place that pays APY, a place that's scarce, right? It's hitting all these categories. Well, the question is not how many people need to store value here today, but how many people need to store value on chain in the future. Once Pulse Chain is successful, once there is the gates open to what is amazing blockchain, once, Pulse Chain starts going up 10x, 20x, PulseX starts running. So yeah, there's a ton of people that need to store value today. But the honest truth is people haven't even made any value yet, and it's already done this well. What happens when this ecosystem starts thriving, and that's when people need to store value? Well, then nothing's changed. This is still going to be a great place for people to store value in. The question that you're going to need to ask yourself is, did I store value there before the masses came? Because when the masses come, they have to buy after you. They have to pay you because there's a fee on every single transaction. And when they enter in, a portion of their purchase goes to support the system, just like a portion of yours did. So do you want to, lock in your share of the store value on chain, that appreciation with plenty of X's to go before these users or with these users?
Yep. The time to get into crypto is right now, not when you jump in the Uber and the guy turns around and starts talking to you about crypto. I don't think retail might be beginning to come over to crypto now, but they haven't really come over in droves like they did last cycle, like 2021. Everybody was talking about it, and that's not going on right now. And that means this is a great time to get in. And besides, Pulse is below SAC price, or like Mando said, it is at SAC price. It is very, very inexpensive right now relative to where we think it might be going. And pTGC and UFO are a leverage play on Pulse. When Pulse does well, pTGC and UFO, we think will do very well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's just something to pay attention to. It's, this system has done very, very well in the environment that it's in. The environment that it's in isn't even the environment that it thrives in. Once the environment changes to where it thrives, obviously people will see more value in it. The liquidity will grow. The question you're going to ask yourself is, 10x from here, Pulse Chain's up 10x, and you need to store some value. You want to put some value to work. You want to still make tons of X's. Well, are you going to store value in brand new assets that just came out? Usually not, right? You usually store value in trusted things that, have liquidity, have a community, etc. Well, if Pulse Chain's up 10x, I have no idea how many X's this will be up from there. But don't you think you're going to wish that you stack some of that at the lowest levels that you can in the micro cycle that we're currently in? Like, if you look at the past, you see that every time Pulse Chain has hit these levels, these have been the lows of pTGC. And no one has to do this, but if you do believe pTGC and UFO will be some of the biggest assets on chain, I'm personally a believer in this, but that's no guarantee. This is just what I think and what I've tried to design these products to be, that when Pulse Chain becomes successful, I think a ton of people will want to use this product as it's been designed. And it makes sense to be in before these people if you knew it existed. And that being said, I think it's also a great time in pTGC and UFO's history. If you know anyone who was looking to get in, but at the current time, the prices were at all-time highs or something like that, maybe follow up with those people, because not only is it good for your own position, but it also could be very, very good for their own position as well. Their position just in the crypto market, their financial best interest, along with your financial best interest.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about onboarding people. That's,
One nice thing about if you have a proven system and you know how it operates, you can actually onboard people, not only like educate them on what it is at the high, so when it does come to the dip, then they're still educated, and then you can remind them like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to get in the past. Off of these levels, it's done like a 45x. That would be great for your portfolio. Well, not only is that great for their portfolio, but it's also great for your portfolio, because now you just onboarded another person into the community who's part of the community now, so another holder. That value has now entered the web, so now that value has entered the token, which is appreciating the token's price. That's cool. But also that value is now in the web, so that value is working for the system. So that's buying and burning supply. That's helping pay you APY. That's adding LP with every transaction, because everyone that enters into the system, that value is now working. It's generating for the future. So I look at these opportunities that we have here on Pulse Chain as very unique. It is another chance at growing our community, at getting people in at awesome prices, so they can also possibly, right, there's no guarantees, get a crazy price appreciation asset for themselves, But then you, as someone, it's almost like a built-in referral program. You know, everyone who you get in, like a portion of their buy actually does pay you via reflections and rewards. But then that value is now within the system, working for the system, making your tokens that you hold more sustainable, buying and burning them, adding LP, and helping grow the foundation of the overall product in general.
Yep. And Paul Sachs mentioned something I was just thinking about when we were talking about onboarding is Rabby Wallet has been rumored to be integrating the Pulse Chain bridge or somehow making it easier to bridge over to the Pulse Chain, which I'm very excited about because I'm a Rabby. I'm a fan. And I'm looking for ways to make it easy for people to get over to Pulse Chain. And that would be one way to integrate two fabulous protocols, the Rabby wallet, and then a way to get over to Pulse Chain. So if anybody can confirm whether Rabby is actually doing this, I would like to see some confirmation, or has done it. You know, I'd like to see that too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've seen that it's been up there for a while. That says like coming soon or pending or something like that. So I don't know if there's any update on it happening any quicker, like anything's been released, or if people are just re-talking about the same thing that's been up for a while now.
Yeah, it's probably not an easy task.
If anyone has any questions or comments or conversation, feel free to come up. If no one does raise their hand, I'll probably be shutting it down here soon. But again, this space isn't really for me and Banana to just talk to each other. It's for the community to come up, ask questions, or just add to the conversation. So if anyone does want to come up and add anything, feel free to. If not, I think we'll be shutting it down here soon.
There are no questions in YouTube. We have 56 people watching. Like the video, guys, if you haven't yet, and then subscribe to my channel, if you would. And also, follow me on X if you're not following me already. I'll drop my X in there in the chat.
Hey, guys. Real quick, ChatGPT 4.0 says, yes, Rabby is integrating a bridge for Pulse Chain.
Yay. Thanks for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I haven't used any of their bridges. I don't know if you have Banana going into other blockchains. I don't know if it's a very seamless and fast system. One thing that I've struggled with Pulse Chain and onboarding new people is when you bring them over the bridge. I love that how secure it is, but they definitely get a little squirmy when it comes to the 30-minute waiting period. So if Rabby was a faster route, if they were doing a smaller amount of funds, I probably would try a different route just so I don't have to sit there with them for 30 minutes as they're like just staring at the validator count go up, worrying about their funds. But for myself, I'm also an old dog that doesn't like changing stuff, so I'd probably still stick with the Pulse Chain bridge as is. But you know, for new users who have smaller amounts or something like that, it might be a good opportunity to make it a more seamless, easy onboard. And we are working on the website to have the how to get into Pulse Chain, how to get into pTGC, and how to stake platform with the walkthrough. And if that portion was that much easier, maybe we would veer from the way that we plan on building it now and integrate it more with Rabby instead of, you know, MetaMask and the current Pulse Chain bridge, etc.
Bill Brosley asks, any advice on how to purchase pTGC and UFO successfully and with good returns? PulseX. Just use PulseX. Set your slippage to 6% for pTGC, 7% for UFO. That should help your transaction to go through. What about the good returns? There are some ways to, like, if you look at the different pairs, you can go into a pair that's less expensive. Somebody showed me this a while ago. I usually just go straight. I go through Pulse, WPLS actually. But do you have any advice on that, Zen?
Yeah, if you're not someone who's super seasoned in messing with dexes and changing all the settings, I would say don't even try any of that. Just keep your auto router on as is. Just turn slippage to 7%. You'll be able to purchase both pTGC and UFO with 7% slippage. It's on the setting icon on the top right. Just hit the gear, and where it says slippage, you just hit 7%. And then you can enter into both pTGC and UFO with that 7% via PLS. And as far as earning additional rewards with UFO, it's a little bit more complex, so I won't go into it. But just by holding UFO, you earn APY. So you can literally just hold UFO and earn APY. With pTGC, you can literally just hold pTGC and earn APY. If you want to take it a step further and single-sided stake your asset, you can go to the DApp, which is pulsetgc.com, and stake your pTGC. The tokens remain in your wallet. You're not giving up custody or anything like that. And you can earn additional APY for doing that within the system. Only do that if you plan on staying a while. There is a 1% fee on exit of staking. So if you plan on only staying a week, it doesn't make sense. If you plan on staying a while, it usually does make sense.
Okay, thanks for that. A Wild SJ was in the chat quite a bit. So a Wild SJ, thanks for jumping in and participating. Just being here, I think, speaks because we just had a conference. I don't know, probably everybody that was at the conference took their crypto journey to it took their crypto journey to a different level, in my opinion. So I think I'm just thinking out loud. Bill Brosley says, I have been having a dozen failed attempts with different slippage settings. You know, what I would do is a little maintenance on my computer. I would clear all my cache, perhaps restart the computer. And another thing you can do is restart Rabby Wallet. Go into, what is it called? Give me a second. You go into your extensions, turn it off, turn it back on, you'll log back in. After you do a little maintenance, then go and try that transaction again. And that might help.
Yeah, one thing the first step I always tell people to do is swap back and forth from two places. I usually use GoRealDeFi.com and PulseX.com. If one of them's acting a little buggy for me, I'll jump to the other one and it goes right through. And then if the other one's acting a little buggy for me, I'll jump to the other one and then it goes right through. So if it's like a swap that you're trying to do, right, that's the transaction that's not going through, try just swapping from either of those front ends, and it actually solves a lot of problems.
There you go. I hope that helps you, Bill. He says, give me a second here. He says, for me anyway, it's been really painful to get a swap to go through. And the returns, what I meant was the claim amount I'd receive is higher than what actually gets to me. I think he's saying that it's telling him that the amount that he would receive is more than what he actually received.
Yeah, so the first thing is there is a fee on transaction when you buy pTGC or UFO. So the number that it's telling you right there isn't going to have in effect the fee on transaction. Everyone has to pay this fee on transaction. More importantly, all the arbitrage bots have to pay this fee on transaction, and that's what really generates revenue for the system. But if your slippage is at 7%, my suggestion would just be try switching the front ends. Maybe try GoRealDeFi.com's front end instead of PulseX's, or if you're using GoRealDeFi, try just PulseX.com. And again, I think that usually solves the problem for 90 of people.
Mm-hmm.
If he's live right now trying, we can stay on and see if that helped.
Well, he said those are all good ideas. He'll give them a try.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, man. Oh, and before we go, we will have spaces again on Monday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I will be having an AMA tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. So if you're new, you got any questions, you want to see a presentation on pTGC and UFO where I walk through the DAP and the moon math calculator and some other sites, jump in there tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific on this channel.
Awesome, Banana. Yeah, I appreciate you joining me and doing the spaces with me.
Absolutely. All for the team, Zan. It's all for the team.
Cool.
Team Grays, Team Crypto. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, you've been such an amazing team member. I don't think I can say it enough. I don't think the community can say it enough. It's been such a blessing having you here with us. So I just wanted to say thank you for being along on the journey with us. That being said, guys, look at where the pTGC and UFO chart is right now. Look at what has happened every time it has reached these levels. I know if you're already in, it hurts, but there is some value in DCAing and increasing your position, even if that's just temporarily for when price goes back up. Then possibly use that as a profit-taking strategy, or it's for you to increase your position in general. If last time it was up, you're kicking yourself in the butt saying, oh, I wish I had more, like I knew what this thing was. Or maybe it's a great point for you to kind of make some of those calls and get in a few friends, family, etc., people that you want to be part of this system, and we're just waiting for an opportunity to get them in. I do think that opportunity is here right now. The market's at all-time lows, pulse chain's at all-time lows. pTGC, in my opinion, is probably close to all-time lows. Not all-time lows, lows for this microcycle. The DAO has a good amount of revenue sitting on sidelines waiting to inject back into the system once the market picks back up. And our machine is operating pretty much better than ever at these levels. We're buying and burning more supply than ever. We're, distributing more tokens than ever. The machine's operating absolutely perfectly. The price being a little bit low has nothing to do with the machine. It's just the market cycle in general. So take the opportunity if you want it. And, as the market moves back up, I believe the conversation is going to be, why didn't I take advantage of that dip? That's usually how it goes. So.
Yep. That's correct.
Cool. All right, guys.
Well, thank you for hosting the space today, Zen.
Yeah. Let's have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. See ya.
And the spaces is closed. And I hope everybody has a good weekend. I'm planning to have a good weekend. It's Saturday. I get to go to work, then go home and chill. Jump into AMA tomorrow. I mean that. Like, guys, if you're new, I want to show you how this thing works. We will talk about it. I've got some slides, and we'll literally walk you through the DAP, which is very powerful to see it. Like, man, when I came into the Grays, I would have loved to have somebody available like a Prairie Banana to walk me through the system. So please jump in. If you don't have time to actually be there, you can watch the rerun, and I will open myself up to, if you got a question that wasn't answered in her presentation, just PM me on Twitter or in Telegram. And if you guys just want to jump in on Telegram, that's a great resource. There's guys in there day in and day out that can answer any questions. And even the founder is in there. You guys remember the days when Richard Hart was in the Telegram? Yeah. All right, guys. Have a great day. We will see you around the block, the blockchain. See ya.